Welcome to the Coach Toolbox. This podcast is for coaches, leaders, and learners at all levels in organizations and in all walks of life. Here, you will get just-in-time learning that is research-based and practice-focused. The goal is personal and professional mastery. And now, our session today. None of us as parents decide that we want to raise our child or our children to be individuals with a low self-worth or low self-esteem or low self-confidence. We don't want them to think, feel, or believe that they are somehow flawed or defective or not good enough. As parents, we want them to be confident, bold, able to stand on their own, feel internally secure, and so on. Now, all my coaching and counseling clients are children who suffer from low self-confidence. They don't feel good about themselves. They are not internally secure. They often have to struggle to manage their own emotions in a reasonable way, or are continually competing with other children and hardly ever feel that they are good enough with what they have accomplished for themselves. The irony is that all of these wonderful children that I have a privilege of working with have the title of senior manager or leader or VP or director or CXO. Somehow, the way we raise our children has a reduction impact on their self-worth or self-esteem. And this continues well into adulthood and persists despite success in one's career. Now, certainly it is not the intent of any parent, but the impact tells a different story. Therefore, as parents, you and I need to examine carefully our interactions with our child or children and let go of these three harmful interaction patterns. These interactions are shame the child, criticize the child, or compare the child. So the three destroyers of self-worth in a child are shaming, criticizing, and comparing. Now, before you think there is no way I do this with my child, let's understand how we might be using these three behaviors to erode our child's self-esteem. Let's start with the first one, shaming. Often we use shaming as a way to talk to our children because that's the way our parents talk to us. Remember, we as parents or even our parents, we don't have an intention to create damage to the child. But the damage happens. This is how. Your child gets his or her report card and a few marks are not what you expected. Many of us would unleash statements such as, you're lazy, you don't work hard enough, that's why you don't get good marks, or you're so stupid, how could you make such a mistake? What the child really hears and then starts believing about herself is that I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I'm really not worthy of love. So what's happening is the child's identity is getting molded with a shame mold, a mold which says, I'm really not good enough. And this happens day in, day out, in every little context, in subtle ways, in ongoing messaging, where the parent is continually trying to correct the child by telling them, in a sense, that they are not good enough. They can be better. This erodes a child's self-worth and self-confidence in a way that the child, in many cases, really never grows out of this vacuum that has been created, despite the success that they may achieve externally. And the child, his or her current designation may be manager or leader or CXO, never ever feels good enough. So as parents, we don't realize the long-term impact of this shaming language on our child. So what can you and I do about it? Just start noticing in the coming few days the number of times you put your child or children down using this shaming language and then make a conscious attempt to stop it. The second interaction pattern, which is closely linked to shaming, is criticizing. Criticizing is perhaps even part of the shaming package. Some of us as parents can never find something good in what the child does. Or any new attempt or any initiative taken is always treated with a critical statement. Oh, you should have done it this way. Why didn't you use this? Why don't you do it this instead? Why do you always get it wrong? How many times do I have to tell you? Once again, all the child hears is that I'm not good enough. I'm always getting it wrong. Mom and dad,
Don't think I'm smart or pretty or good in sports. And these statements continue eating into the child's self-worth and self-confidence, and she or he starts believing that she or he is not good enough, not worthy of love. The child always has to keep trying and trying to get some affirmation or acceptance or affection from mom and dad. And that affirmation, acceptance, or affection never comes. What we say as parents, of course, with well-meaning intentions, corrupts our child's identity and shapes it with large gaps of self-worth. And unfortunately, these gaps, this vacuum, persists through one's adulthood. Because even as adults, we try our best to seek affirmation, acceptance, or affection from our bosses, peers, directs, spouses, in-laws, friends, and so on. Most of us as adults are always trying to prove ourselves and focus so much on achievement because the gap in our self-worth that was created by these hurtful statements which we heard as children. So how can I, as a parent, do something about this? Well, start by being alert in the coming few days to the ways you bring a critical attitude to whatever your child does. Don't let the gap in our own self-worth dig another hole in our child's self-worth because we constantly want them to be better and better and better. Most often, all our well-meaning feedback is just starving them of the unconditional affirmation, acceptance, or affection that our child is seeking from us. The third way that we can erode our child's self-confidence and self-esteem and self-worth is through comparison. And this is a very insidious way because we are continually comparing our child to either another sibling, hey, you're not as smart as your sister, or your brother can sing much better than you, or to another child, perhaps somebody from our family or a neighbor's child. Well, see how well Ramu plays football, or see Savitri is so smart in maths. She has such a pretty handwriting. Oh, sure, the intention as parents is probably to motivate our child to do better, but in reality, the impact is to confirm to the child that he or she is not as good as someone else, and so really not good enough. Once again, it corrodes the child's self-worth. So what do I do? What can we do? Ask ourselves, which other child or sibling are we continually comparing our child? And in what areas are we comparing our child against another child? And as we do this, let's get awareness and set the intent to stop doing it. Stop doing it. So in summary, there are 3 things that we do as parents that can slowly erode the child's self-worth and self-confidence. And I know we don't intend to cause any harm. Our motivation is always to want the best for our child. But please see that in the long term, the impact is not helpful. And the 3 things are shaming, criticizing, and comparing. Some parents may believe that pushing their child by shaming, criticizing, or comparing can help the child realize his or her potential, and so they feel justified in pushing them. Unfortunately, research suggests that high achievers often have a very low self-esteem and are at high risk for depression. Such children learn that their self-worth is linked to their achievements or defined by their achievements. They see achievements as the only way they can experience affirmation, acceptance, or affection. Perhaps you and I are like this. So please understand that I don't want us to blame ourselves that we are not good parents or that we should carry some guilt. All of us want what's best for our children, yes? But our parenting style may have bugs that are inherited from our own parents, and they are amplified by the pressure that we work, by the pressure that our work, our commute, our lack of time, all of the pressures of modern life, it just gets amplified. We need to raise our children to believe that they are good enough just as they are. They have value and are precious to us. And this is not linked to their marks or grades or any other achievement. They are good enough in themselves and not in comparison to anyone else. So here are some self-reflection questions that will help us reflect on our own parenting style so that we can fix the bugs and raise kids who have a strong sense of their self-worth and have high self-confidence. So some of these questions are: what are some shaming, criticizing, or comparing statements that I use now with my children that I've perhaps inherited from my own parents? How often did my own parents praise me or make me feel valued or loved or accepted just as I am? How am I trying to get the child to fill the gap that I have in my own self-worth? So in closing, some things that we must do more and more of to build our child's self-worth. Let's look for ways to teach them how to accept themselves for who they are. And by doing this, they will also learn to accept others. Let's look for ways to teach them how to be grateful for what they have and learn to appreciate what they have and to appreciate others in addition to themselves. Let's show them how to be kind to themselves and therefore they will learn to be kind to others. Let's teach them to share and to be friendly and to bond with others. And by teaching them all this, we will be teaching them that they have tremendous value and worth in who they are as individuals and as human beings. Happy parenting.
And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Please connect with us on coachtoolbox@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and review this channel. Details of our ICF-approved coach training programs and our services as executive coaches and coaching supervisors are on www.globalcoachtrust.org. See you in our next session.